You are now listening to the fastest show on iSports Radio. My name is Daryl Jr. Welcoming you to our lap extra mile for today, July the 6th, 2023. We are back in Hotlanta. I think the NASCAR guys are just happy to finally be dry after what happened in Chicago. We got a lot to talk about with that race and more. And to help me talk about that, of course, my co-host, Christopher Lehman. Chris?
How are you doing this evening, Daryl?
I'm doing good. Thankful that I am nice and dry. I don't think the clothes for anybody in NASCAR universe are dry yet from Chicago. 8 inches of rain they got at one point during that weekend.
That's crazy.
And if you're joining us in the chat, make sure you get your comments and we'll read those live on the show as we get going with this edition of the Extra Mile. We will start right there with the Chicago Street Course, and I think we can't go any further talking about that until we get into the absolute biblical, once-in-a-generation, monsoon-esque storm that came in and set in on them from about halfway through the Xfinity race until about 6 o'clock when they finally ran the Cup race. I have never seen rain that bad for a NASCAR race. And I was at Daytona for a rain out.
Yeah, and I think what we got to leave it up to, or, give a proper kudos to, is the city of Chicago, just their drainage system. Because holy crap, man. They were talking about tires floating away. Tires were literally floating down pit road. And 30 minutes after pit road was 2 feet deep of water, 30 minutes later, they're racing.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like, Denny talked about it a lot on his podcast this week about how, like, he was like, yeah, there's no way we're racing. And then they called him they were like 30 minutes to the cars. And Denny's like, not a freaking chance. That's when he like tweeted out that don't do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes, and then we walk out to go get in the car, and he's like, it's all gone.
Yeah, the drainage system of Chicago is doing extra work because I saw a video from Colic Racing where they put the camera under the water on pit road, and it was over ankle deep. It was shin deep water at this point. I did not think we were getting a race in either. I think at this point there was really bad water in the loop in the 8, 9, 10 area. There was like standing water there that we somehow got through, and just from the persistence. Go ahead.
I think a big part of it though is the barriers were preventing water from escaping, because Denny said that they were going around the track lifting barriers, cutting the bottoms of the barriers out so that water could get out. So I think that to a degree, the barriers were kind of trapping water. And once they went around and started doing a little track management, I think that it got a lot better.
Yeah, once they got the barriers out, they were able to get the water away from the tracks. We were actually able to go racing. And what I will say, from the half of an Xfinity race that we got, and by the way, folks are upset that Cole Custer won that race because they didn't even get to halfway. Folks, there was no way in hell they were going to run that Xfinity Series race. As hard as it was raining when they came on in the broadcast at 11 o'clock, you would have piled everybody into turn one. And the last thing you want to see is them try to a Spa 2021. Because, Chris, I don't even think that the tires would have handled that.
No. No, I mean, what that was just a freak, like you said, of a generational monsoon that happened. I mean, that's something that you just don't see that type of storm very often in especially the northern US. I would say that, hurricanes are kind of an anomaly in that department. So those of us up here kind of on the northern edge of the country, and especially kind of like the Midwest, I mean, there's just not, the rainstorms that like the Floridas and Louisianas and stuff like that get. So it was just the tires would have really stood no chance. I mean, this it was kind of like Coda 2021, where if these guys could have gotten any amount of speed, it would have just been so dangerous, especially on the same weekend. Um, that we lost Delano. Um,
Yeah.
so we lost him on Saturday, and then you see people talking about, oh, we should be racing. Where's the wet weather tire? Formula One, all the formulas have wet tires, and it does not stop the inevitable from happening. So I'm glad that they chose to shorten the race and be safe. And I thought that it was rather ignorant and a little disrespectful of the American fans, which no surprise there really, that we're basically mocking NASCAR for not running in the wet when we had literally just lost a life in the racing community
And
24, not even 24 hours earlier. It was earlier that day.
and trust me, we're gonna get to that. That happened, I believe. That was on Sunday. Yeah, so trust me, we're gonna get to that because I have a bone to pick with them. Michael Ward just joined us. Michael, welcome.
Hello, hello, hello.
Yep. So we got all three gangs all here this evening.
Again, man.
Adam Karnick just asked in the chat, how do we think Chicago went? Well, we're talking about it right now. I thought for the 1.5 races we saw, it was fantastic. I am a believer that we can do this. We shouldn't do it a lot. I think you add one more street race and you're good. I don't think you need 3 or 4 of them. Chicago, let that be the big one, and then you get a smaller one somewhere else.
I would venture further, Daryl, and I would say don't do it every year.
Mm-hmm.
Do it every other year. And then, take one of the road courses that we run and just go back and forth. You know what I mean? Like, I think that there's a certain appeal to the street course, but we're not built for street courses. We just aren't. Supercars are. They're a lot sportier. They're a lot quicker. But these cars, and I know that it's raining, but they're just so big. Our stock cars are big, whereas supercars are actual stock cars. Mm-hmm. They're much more in line with the size. So I don't think that street courses, when they're dry, normal conditions, I don't think that they're going to be nearly as exciting as what we just had with the wet.
Well, I would say the Xfinity race, when it was dry, was pretty good. They figured out how to pass on that track, and it was entertaining. The Xfinity guys kept getting into the barriers and we kept having cautions, but I want to see what the Cup car would have done in the dry. We did not get any sort of dry, even though they had the dry tires on. That track was extremely damp all day. So, they did their best, but I definitely want to see it when there's not, 8 inches of rain out there.
I think the big thing for the Cup cars, and I didn't watch the Xfinity, so I guess I can't really speak to that, but having those couple, you got a couple straights where you could get some speed, and then it went into a sharp corner, not kind of like a long winding, if you think about like Watkins Glen coming out of the bus stop, and then you got that long sweeping right-hander. These are basically going into 90s. And I think that what made this race good was that you had guys lunging and out braking. And so I think that's where the strategy was created. But you also, the downside of that is we saw a lot of guys not making the corner. And I think that some of them wouldn't have made it if it was dry conditions. If they had perfect grip, they're still not making the corner, which obviously adds a level of excitement. But, I would say that if we're going to do street circuits in the future, we definitely need to make sure that we have corners where these guys can outbrake and lunge.
Yeah, and this track really worked out that way going into turn 1. And the straightaway between 1 and 2 was long enough to really catch somebody, really dive to the inside. We saw Shane Van Gisbergen do that, which I don't know why they couldn't say that name correctly.
There's no N, there's no first N, Daryl.
Sorry, Gisbergen. I always said it with that first N. But yeah, Shane Van Gisbergen made the race-winning move on Justin Haley, and then you could really drag down to 3 and 4 and kind of make that 2 into 1 corner as they tried to do. They tried to make a pass there and then back into 6. So you had about 3, maybe 4, depending on how adventurous you were, into 7 good passing zones on this track. And Michael, to get you in here for the first time, you got to see some of the race. What did you think? Because I think it shattered my expectations. The rain definitely helped. What did you think about the weekend? Oh, we may have lost Michael. Michael, you there? We will come back to Michael, but oh Lord, you guys still not hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, you were typing to Michael. I'm sorry. Okay, so we will keep going. We'll try to come back to Michael in a little bit.
Michael must be in the Ferrari pit box.
He's probably exacting some revenge over there.
Oh, there he is. Yeah, of course. I bring up Ferrari, and here he is.
Oh, screw you, Chris.
Michael,
we'll get into it later, but you guys had a pretty good run on Sunday.
We did really great on Sunday.
The old prancing horses redeemed themselves to a degree.
Yeah.
To a degree. But yeah, I really enjoyed it's not showing that I'm talking on Zoom. Am I talking?
Yeah, you're good.
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought the race was really good. There was a lot of passing. The only thing I'm worried about was the race good because of the actual, layout, the design of the track, or, did the rain kind of give us that little equalizer? You know what I mean?
Both.
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of both.
They worked in perfect harmony with each other.
Now, the interesting...
In fact, I'd be a fan of sprinklers around the street courses, like we've talked about with Monaco.
Okay, Bernie Ecclestone.
Okay, I was about to make the joke, but I didn't want to be the guy.
Yeah, I want to see how this runs, though, next year with the dry conditions. There's a couple of drivers, though, that probably don't want to come back here. One of them
Noah Gragson?
Yeah, Noah Gragson. He must have hit the turn 6 wall about 3 or 4 times, and then he spun coming back to pit road after the end of the race.
On a cool down lap. Yeah. That kid hit everything but the lottery.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he hit the pace car, too. And Bubba Wallace... y'all can't
I dropped an F-bomb in the group chat.
Yeah. Y'all can't see my face, but...
I dropped an F-bomb on Martin Truex, though. Everybody that put SVG's race in jeopardy got an F-bomb in our group chat, courtesy of me.
Yep. Bubba's got to do better.
Last caution, I was like,
God damn it, Bubba. I was like, first, Martin Truex, what do these Toyotas got against this man? Is it because...
It's funny because they were dominating the race.
Is it because
Toyota... and it all fell apart.
I came to the conclusion that it must be Toyota so in bed with Monster Energy they couldn't stand to see a Red Bull win.
I wish. I just... Bubba's got to be better at road courses. I think I say that every time we come from a road course race, but I got into an argument on Twitter and actually did some digging on his statistics. In the last, I think, 7 road courses we've had, he's got one top 5, 2 top 10s.
You said 7?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's had 4 finishes a 15th or worse. 3 of them have been DNFs. Now, those DNFs were mechanical, but those are still did not finishes. And he was not running that particularly well when they happened. There are 6 of these every year now. One of them is going to decide whether or not you go to the final 8. He's got to get better. Whatever this mental block is, he's got to get over it. Because, we can just throw this race out. No, you can't do that. Y'all aren't good enough. You can't throw races away. And they've thrown away 3. And we got 2 more, and those come before Daytona. He could end up outside of the playoffs going to Daytona. Because we have the Glen, and I got to go back to the schedule to see where we go before the Glen. But we have the Indy Road course, and then we have the Glen right after it.
Yep.
He could end up deep in the hole going to Daytona.
Yep.
Yeah, it's difficult going to Daytona in a must-win scenario.
He's done it twice and hasn't come close to pulling it off, so we already know how it works. And the luckiest thing for him is that SVG, Shane Van Gisbergen, picked up the win on Sunday and shocked the NASCAR world with winning that race, which started a lot of dumb comments from people trying to slag off Cup Series drivers. But folks, like every other race for supercars is a street course race. That was NASCAR's first ever in the Cup Series and in that weather. Shane Van Gisbergen is used to that. These drivers are not. That is what happened there. It is not an indictment of the Cup
passes,
Series.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, he did. That pass
he made some great passes.
The pass on Haley through turn 2 with 5
kiss,
just after
man.
the restart
French
was
kiss.
magnificent.
That was beautiful.
So I have a lot of thoughts on the whole SVG versus the field. And
French kiss, chef's kiss, my bad.
And I have a hard time deciding where I fall because Denny said that when basically like with the rain, NASCAR doesn't really run in the rain. SVG has experience running in the rain. These guys don't have any experience with street courses. SVG has a crap load of experience. He's forgotten more about racing street courses than these guys have ever learned.
Yes.
So Denny kind of said this was less about SVG coming over and racing a NASCAR race and more like if the entire NASCAR field went over and ran a supercars race.
Mm-hmm.
Which I agree to a point, but something that has not been talked about enough is that SVG is used to sitting on the opposite side of the car and shifting with the opposite hand.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those equal each other out. And I think that basically everybody was on an even footing. I don't think anybody really had an advantage over the other. I would say maybe the only thing is that SVG is probably better at on the fly calculations of speed versus corner and kind of knows how to hit the apexes better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And don't forget, Haley and Elliott were on an alternate strategy.
Yeah.
So their tires were
fresh tires.
dead compared to what SVG
16
had,
laps.
and they had to save fuel.
Yeah.
I really want to just chalk the win up to, the circumstances that happened during that race. Because had all the craziness that didn't happen in the third stage, I really feel like Bell would have won the race. But he's come over from supercars to NASCAR stock cars. Well, not stock cars, cup cars. And he's managed to take his talent and transfer it into a completely different vehicle and, win. And I think that's a chalk up to just kind of just raw talent. So that's kind of where I'm at with the whole him and stock cars versus supercars kind of thing, because I think he was just down to his talent, really.
Well, don't
Yeah,
forget,
and I mean,
he did say on the interview he wants to come run NASCAR full time in 2025. So
And I bet
that could be your hot
everybody
free
was
agent.
sweating when he said that.
he said he'd like to.
He'd like to, yeah.
He's keeping his options open. And actually, Jamie Winkup said that if SVG wants to depart early for 2024, he will not stand in his way. So if an SVG said in an article that came out today that his phone's been ringing off the hook from NASCAR.
Somebody's trying to get him in the seat.
I don't know who it could be, though.
I wonder who.
I'm also trying to figure
And
it out.
I don't think it's like any midfield team. I think it's a top dog that's trying to get him.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out
what top Chevy rider is going to be open if he's going to stay with Chevy.
Austin Dillon.
No,
I don't see Pop getting away. I don't see Pop getting rid of him. I know we talk about it. I just don't see it happening.
I mean, as much as it really pains me to say, the 48 car, but he just did the longest renewal of his career so far. So
yeah, Alex is locked down tight, so I don't see that happening.
But I would think that it would probably. I don't think it'll be Toyota. No. I can almost guarantee it won't be a Toyota team, and it's because I doubt Red Bull doesn't stay involved with his career if he comes over here. And Toyota has Monster on both teams.
And not to mention, the Ford deal doesn't come until 2026, so those are still Honda badged Red Bull engines for a while. And I don't know how much Honda has play over there, but Honda's not going to want one of their drivers in a Toyota. Well, their driver. They're not going to want a Red Bull affiliated driver.
Well, Red Bull is
Toyota.
Still. I was gonna say something kind of like off topic, but like Red Bull still has drivers in the WEC team, but that kind of reminds me of something. Like, would there be any type of issue if Kobayashi rode NASCAR? Because he's not a Red Bull driver, but if he brings the Red Bull brand over here, not the Red Bull brand, but the Toyota brand over here, would that contradict them? Because Toyota also has Red Bull drivers, but the American team has Monster. I don't know. It's a lot of politics now.
It's a lot of contract stuff that we are not equipped to deal with, but we'll see how it goes. They're going to Atlanta this weekend, but the one big thing I will say before we go take this break real quick, the Chicago street race drew 5 million viewers and got a 9.29 rating this weekend. This race is not going away if they can help it. That's what I'm going to say about that.
Yeah.
It will just die a slow death over the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it dies. My hope is that it's going to become another one of the United States centennial street races or perennial street races. But we'll see. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we got to get into Formula One. Oh, wait. I think they just handed out another track limits penalty. We'll explain that on the other side of this break. Sit tight. You're listening to the Extra Mile on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
It's IE Sports Radio. It is your direct feed for all that is sports. It is Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris every Tuesday night right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris is the most comprehensive view on Philadelphia sports exclusively right here on IE Sports Radio. You know what it is, your direct feed for all that is sports. Tuesday night, IE Sports Radio, Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris.
What's up, sports fans? Are you looking for the latest on Northern California sports? Then take a trip out west with me, your host, Gina G, on Reppin' the NorCal Sports, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'll be bringing it to you all the way live every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. And it's always a packed show. I'll bring you everything Dynastic 49ers, the bite of the San Jose Sharks, torture of the San Francisco Giants, the Golden State Warriors that we still believe. Then take you across the bay to the rise and grind of the Oakland A's. I've got you covered on college ball from the Cal Bears to the Stanford Cardinal, so that no matter what, reppin' in NorCal sports is always reppin' the Bay. So if you bleed red and gold, or you're looking to keep an eye out west in them thar hills, don't miss me, Gina G, on reppin' in NorCal sports. Catch me every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, and I'll have your fandom repped harder than a trio of defenders guarding Stephen Curry before his buzzer beater is Gucci.
And we are back here in the Extra Mile IE Sports Radio. Your direct feed for all that is sports. Daryl, Chris, and Michael here with you this evening. We're going to get into the F1 Austrian Grand Prix, and crap, I just got a penalty for extending track limits. That was half the race. Like, we're not... Max Verstappen won. I think we all knew that. The track penalties for exceeding track limits was the worst we have ever seen it.
Yeah, I think everybody finished the race with on either had a penalty or were on their final warning.
Yeah. Esteban Ocon got like 30 seconds worth of penalties.
Nobody knows how, but Nicholas Latifi had a black and blue flag.
Yeah. I see what you did there. Also, Nico Hulkenberg got a penalty for track limits when he was out of the race. So that is something we do not need to be doing. It's just ridiculous that there were so many penalties they had to redo the final order of the top 10 because there were that many track limits penalties. Maybe it's time to reassess the track limits at Austria. Just a thought.
Yeah, it could be time. Or people just need to learn how to stay on the track.
See, I would say that if they weren't calling it like the Premier League offsides rule, where you've got one half of a hair follicle across the line and it's offsides, which thankfully they're testing a change to that rule. But they call that too. I just don't like how the FIA officiates races. The finish on the track rarely at this point is how the finish stays with all the nonsense penalties they like to hand out.
Yeah, I would agree.
As we sit
Sorry,
here,
I was reading that message.
no, you're good. And Michael, Ferrari didn't have a bad day today, strategy-wise, which is rare for them. Got Charles Leclerc on the podium. Carlos Sainz, unfortunately, was 6th, but still a good day for Ferrari. We'll give Michael a chance to get his audio back together. But, yeah, it was not bad. Charles Leclerc had an outside chance of winning that race, but Max just too strong at Red Bull's home track, and he went out there, put a whooping on everybody. Oh, there he is.
We had him for half a second.
Hello?
Yeah, we got you.
Wait a second.
We got you, Michael.
We hear you now.
Unless he doesn't hear us.
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
Oh, yeah, we can hear you. We're good.
But yeah, they had a great race, great strategy. Although, I wanted to get you guys' opinion on something regarding them. During the race, Sainz said he was faster and that maybe he can take on Verstappen. Mm-hmm. And he was going faster, but do you believe that's because of DRS? Or do you actually feel like he was faster?
I think that was a DRS thing.
That was pretty early in the race, right? Probably like the first 10 laps or so.
Yeah, so he thought he was faster and could catch Verstappen. So I was like, do you switch him around? Because I don't know. That's kind of tricky to do with the both of them because if you switch Sainz around, I don't think he's going to be, reluctant to get the place back. So I thought it was tricky because later on in the race when he overtook Norris, who had a really great weekend, by the way, Norris was able to stick close to him purely on DRS, which just shows you how strong DRS is, really.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Do you make the switch to switch him around? Do you?
What my thoughts are is that maybe Carlos was faster. I mean, you could attribute a lot of it to DRS. But what I would counter with and say that if it wasn't the DRS, he might just be getting better setups for the straights. Because obviously there's, 3 really long straights. And so if he's setting himself up better coming off of like turn 10 for that front stretch, if he's getting a good run, maybe he has a little bit better of a line through 10, and then the same thing with 1 and 2. Maybe he is quicker on those, on those 3 corners or something. It's hard saying, really.
Yeah, it was really hard to make a call there.
But what I would say is, after a couple laps of, Max pulling away, what do you have to lose by switching him?
That's what I was thinking. Like, what do you have to lose? And if he can't catch him like he said he could, then you switch him back.
Yep. Or you call the strategy so that it kind of switches them without having to switch them.
Yeah, it's also very hard to just do that, because it's like if you do that, you might jeopardize 4th place catching you. So
yeah, and I would say that.
And then you also have to think about Perez charging through the field. So it's
What I would say is, maybe another thing to consider is if we flip this around and it was, Ferrari 1 and then 2 Red Bulls, I think they would split the tire strategy between the 2 Red Bulls.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think that maybe Ferrari had a misstep by not doing a separate tire strategy and trying to, let's try, 2 different strategies and hopefully one of them works, rather than let's put both cars on the same strategy and hope that one works. I think that was a misstep on their part.
Yeah, I think that would have worked better, to be honest with you.
Yep. On the other side, though, Mercedes, absolutely awful day by their standards. George and Lewis only 7th and 8th. That was originally flipped around until the 1,200 other penalties had to be assessed and applied for infringing on track limits. But Mercedes, they were building on some momentum, and this was just a gut punch of a weekend for them.
Yeah, is it the track, you wonder? Does this car just not suit
It might be the track, because they also had this issue last year, sorry.
Yeah,
where they just
I think
were
it might
nowhere.
just be the track, really.
Mhm.
Like, their car just doesn't suit the track.
So we're going to continue this Formula 1 discussion. We're going to take a quick break, though. We have to do some behind-the-scenes shuffling. We'll be right back here on the Extra Mile. Sit tight. We'll be right back in just a moment. And we're back here on Extra Mile on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Daryl and Chris here with you. Michael will be joining us momentarily as we are back going. Unfortunately, some issues with Zoom have put us on an alternate account, so that's why I had to reset the room so we could hear each other. And now we are back. Continue a little bit of the Formula One discussion as Verstappen ends up picking up the win. Second was Charles Leclerc. Sergio Perez was third. So Perez getting back on the podium after just an awful day in qualifying. But if you look at the point standings right now in the driver's standings, Verstappen on 229, Perez on 148. This one might be just about over between Verstappen and the rest of the field at this point. I think right now the race is going to be for second between Perez and Alonso and Hamilton at this point.
Yeah, I would say it's a three-dog race for second for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Lewis isn't so far out that he's out. I mean, he's 25 points exactly back from Fernando. And Fernando's 17 back from Checo. So, I mean, that's not a bad race. I mean, that's one or two screw ups, and and everybody's back within a couple points of each other. So, but yeah, I would probably have to say that first, it's Max's at this point.
And the issue is the way things are going. We have a 24 race season that they just announced for next year. That season is supposed to go into December, like second week of December. We're not going to do that if this championship is like this.
Yeah,
I might.
No.
It might just be me talking about how good Max is.
But I mean, the championship will be decided long before then.
Probably about this time next year.
Yeah. Depending on how things go. So we hope the championship gets more exciting. But yeah,
Hopefully,
it's just
because this is a snores fest.
Well, even when Mercedes was doing this, I mentioned it. The way the rules are, one team gets good, and everybody else just can't get caught up.
Yeah, I think next year will be different. Because I think it was either Christian or Helmet, but one of them said that like right now they still are not feeling any of the negative effects of the cost cap breach. But this off season, he said, will be detrimental. Like they're going to be absolutely screwed when they're out of tunnel time.
Yeah, sure.
Which sounds like they might not be too far away.
I'm sorry, Chris. I don't believe anything you're saying right now.
No, I mean, they still had, well over 100 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they're not bringing upgrades this week. I mean, they're.
Mm-hmm. That is still plus 15 seconds, by the way.
Yeah, but you're also reliant on the other teams figuring it out. And you had probably I don't want to crap on Ferrari, but the next most competent team had their head stuck up their ASSs for the last season and a half.
Yeah.
Wait. This is not about just Ferrari. We got to see what Mercedes and Aston do.
I specifically just talked about Mercedes with their heads where the sun don't shine.
Oh, you were talking about Mercedes. Yeah,
yes, I was saying that they were probably going to be the team that was best equipped to take the title fight to them just until Ferrari remembers that they can hire people from outside the homeland.
Hopefully.
And I mean, Red Bull's taking one of their senior engine guys, so maybe everybody else has a hope. Maybe.
I don't understand that. I don't understand that hiring, but pop off queen.
Yeah,
pop off queen.
So I think that Mercedes will. I think this off season you're going to see it get closer. And actually, look at qualifying last week. I mean, the Ferraris were not very far off of the Red Bull, And sure, you can say the Red Bulls turned down for reliability, but still, that that was
I
a tight
mean,
that was a tight freaking gap in qualifying.
it was, but Leclerc's just when it comes to Saturday, he's amazing. It's Sunday where he needs to focus on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
no,
this
I
is
would.
coming from a Leclerc fan.
And the French GP would like to have a word from 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's
that
Mr. Saturday when he needs to be Mr. Sunday.
I think we'll look at France as the if Leclerc's career continues the trajectory that it's currently on, which is less about him and more about Ferrari, we'll look at France as the beginning of the end.
Really? I kind of look at Monaco.
France is just where it was final. You know what I mean? That's where it was over. And then he doesn't feel like himself since that race. I just don't think that Charles Leclerc is the Charles Leclerc from the day before that race.
He definitely doesn't drive like it.
No. It's really like he lost a step. And I think what he needs is like a win or a
win or just a really good race.
A competitive P2.
Yeah.
And not a P2 where Max boxes on the last lap so we can get fastest lap. He needs a P2 that's within 2 to 3 seconds, and it was genuine pace that put him there.
Yes.
Yeah, I think he just needs a few good races.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. We're heading into Great Britain this week for the British Grand Prix, and the Just Stop Oil folks have been making noise that they're going to protest again. If you remember last year, the only reason none of them got turned into road pizza is because Zhou Guan Yu was upside down in the turn 1 tire barrier. Folks, do not run on an active racetrack for any reason. Like, I get the message they're trying to make. This is a monumentally stupid idea. You are going to get yourself killed. Okay, these cars can stop on a dime, but they're going at 200 miles per hour. There's a distance there that stopping distance might go through you if they don't know you're out there. So please, I implore you, find another way to get your message across. Running onto an active racetrack as the race is starting, which is the absolute worst time to do this, by the way, is not one of those times.
Hopefully they got the message.
Yeah. I was gonna say I can just think of better things to do with your time.
But on some more positive news, Brad Pitt has begun filming I don't think we have a title for this movie yet that they're doing about Formula One. They started filming today, actually. They got out there with the modified F2 cars they're using. There'll be 8 filming times during the race weekend. None of it is going to affect the actual racing on track. That'll be kind of cool for the fans to see, to get a chance to be some extras in this movie that they're filming. Way too early to know whether it's going to be any good, but still, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it, and they'll be on the pace or the what lap are they going to be? How is it going to work?
They're not, so they're going to have their own session out there. They're not going to be out there with the other cars.
But I had heard that they will do. Are they just going to go from the grid or from the garage out to the grid with them? And then when those guys go to do their formation lap, they'll do the four. I thought they were going to do the out lap to go to the grid. And then are they also doing the formation lap and then they're just pulling into the pits afterwards?
I have not heard, but I think what they're going to do is similar to kind of what they did with Days of Thunder, which is where only in a different sense where they are just going to do the formation lap and then pull in. I don't see them putting those cars out there to do a lap at like racing speed with the rest of the field.
If they were going to do it, I would think that it would be the first lap and they'd tell them, like, do not go when the other cars do. You wait 5 seconds, then you go.
Mm-hmm.
And then you need to not screw up on the way back to the pits.
Yeah. I don't know how they're going to do it as far as Sunday. I know during, Friday and Saturday, they'll have some time to themselves to get out there and run, but I do not imagine these modified F2 cars will be out there with the F1 cars for very long, if at all.
So I was half expecting the team to be named Connor Sport.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see. It's going to be fun to see the videos from that, whether it be on Twitter, for how much longer Twitter is around. Definitely on TikTok and
Twitter
Threads. For all of us that joined the Thread party last night, about 30 million people jumped on there on the first day. Yeah, it's a big deal. Keep you guys updated on that. But you get the British Grand Prix. IndyCar is off. Next week they will be going to Toronto. Alex Palou, 3 straight wins. Now 100 points up on the championship. He's doing a little Max Verstappen-esque run himself to his second IndyCar championship right now. Now a 2-race advantage after a dominating win at Mid-Ohio. And yet again, Colton Herta has a chance to win the race, and he gets screwed on pit road.
Yeah, well, I want to say he screwed himself.
There's a saying, par for the course.
Yeah. Well, this time he accidentally hit the pit limiter, so I can't blame it all on pit road, but this kid just has zero luck at all.
And this guy had zero luck when he picked him for nearest the win.
Yeah, my nearest the win picks did not go over that great.
I forgot who mine was.
Speaking of Palou, so I need to find out what podcast it was, but Helmut Marko was on a podcast this past week and said that somebody had asked, do you and Christian ever get into disagreements about your drivers? And Helmut had said that there's only one driver that they've gotten into a disagreement about, and it was like last week or the week before or something. And they were like, oh, what driver? And he said, Nick DeVries. Mm-hmm. And they said, what about? And Helmut said that he really wanted Nick DeVries and Christian wanted no part of him. And then he said Christian was right. So consider that. So consider that second AlphaTauri seat open next year. It's open for business.
Give the kid a chance to get used to Formula One. This feels like Brendan Hartley all over again. It really does.
But and then like whoever on TikTok was like responding or reacting to it was like, can't you like at least give the kid till he's out of the seat before you start talking trash? And the other guy was like, as far as Helmut's concerned, that seat's already open.
Yeah.
I mean,
that dude is cold-blooded.
I mean, if your last name's not Verstappen, Helmut Marko doesn't really care. Yeah, like this when Vettel was there too.
Yeah, they get their boy, and not much else matters.
I'm sorry, Helmut Marko is like the sole reason I do not like Red Bull.
I think that team's likability would go up by 100 if he was not involved. I'm just gonna be honest.
Chris, if you want me to genuinely like Red Bull, like get rid of Marco.
I'll call Christian and see what we can do.
Yeah, please, because that is like the only thing. I'm like, ugh. And it's not like the AlphaTauri. Like the AlphaTauri is okay, but it's not like getting up there in points. Like even with Shinoda, so it's just like it's hard for like anybody to score points really. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, Sonoda's only got 2 points this season, and Nick DeVries has zilch.
Yep.
So it's just
They
like,
are
it's
dead
tough.
last in the constructors. Williams has more than triple the points, which I mean, 7 points to AlphaTauri's 2. I mean, triple's really not that big of a deal, but
Mm,
yeah, AlphaTauri 2 points this season.
yeah.
Williams 7.
AlphaTauri has been really, really bad. But the thing with AlphaTauri, though, is it's not like they've been finishing 19th and 20th every week. They just cannot get in the points.
If you can
That's
get
just how competitive the midfield is, really.
if points paid out the top 12, AlphaTauri would probably be like 8th in the constructors.
Yes.
Because Yuki was placing 11th for like 5 races in a row.
Yeah. If they gave points down to 11th, they'd be in a much better place.
Yeah. But who would have thought, like back in the George Russell days, seeing 7 points for Williams halfway through the season?
That car's getting faster.
Yeah, after they got rid of some of their 20-year-old equipment. I don't know if you read that story. Some of the stuff in there was 20 years old.
Yeah, they've been using really old equipment, and it's sad because I really wish like people invested heavily in Williams again, because we've seen what they can do with money. That's the thing.
We're seeing their results though. I mean, they got 7 points. They're only 2 behind Alfa Romeo for 8th, and only 4 behind Haas with 11.
Yeah.
I mean, if they can keep getting points, which Alex Albon is obviously carrying that team.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, he's got all 7 points, but I mean, Mr. Q3, I mean, that Williams is good, and I'm really happy to see Albon getting points and showing that car can and is competitive.
On the other side, Logan Sargent, his ride might be open next year. That's the rumor.
It's only been a year.
These guys, they need results.
If they don't get results in 1 year, they're getting blown out.
Yeah, that's the thing about Formula One, man. You are given sometimes really off equipment and told, hey, win the championship, beat your more experienced and more driven rival teammate, and then maybe you'll be back next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that if you're in the bottom 3 teams, your seat's probably open for business if you're not getting the results.
Yeah.
And, you know, looking at the constructors, I mean, Alfa Romeo's only got 9 points.
Yeah.
You know, and Valtteri's got 5, Joe Granew's got 4. So, I mean, that's a pretty even split, but yeah. You almost
next year they're not going to be Alfa Romeo.
No, but you'd almost expect more out of Valtteri.
You said what?
I said you kind of expect more out of Valtteri.
Yeah, but how well is that car? I don't know if it's that great. Especially compared to what he used to be in.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we just see him and he's just always like something's happening. I think he's just having bad luck too, but he's like always 17th, 18th, 19th. Every freaking race you look in, at some point he's down there.
Yeah.
I think he's just getting to that point where he's about to call it quits.
Yeah.
Most likely. And Atlanta,
especially depending on who's doing the new team.
Yeah, you don't know who Audi wants in their seats when they make that switch.
Mick.
Could see that.
You really think it's gonna be Mick?
It'll be somebody German.
Sebastian Vettel comes back. I'm just kidding.
I don't see that. So before we get
But
out of
yeah.
here, we do have NASCAR in Atlanta this week.
Atlanta.
And Silverstone.
Yeah, well, we talked about Silverstone already. We've got NASCAR going to Atlanta, another one of our super speedway races. This is going to be a race where you're going to see guys throwing hands at everybody to try to lock in to the playoffs, because at this juncture, looking at the rest of the NASCAR schedule, it doesn't get any easier to try to lock into one of these spots. As we go to the schedule, so we'll have New Hampshire after this. Then we go to Pocono. Then after Pocono, we'll be back at Richmond, short track. Then the Firekeepers Casino at 400. Firekeepers Casino 400 at the Michigan International Speedway. That was a barn burner last year, as that surface is finally starting to age. Then you've got the two road courses, Indianapolis and the Glen, and then Daytona to end it. Somebody's going to be really happy on Sunday that they won that race and got that lock in, because this is going to be a murderer's row of races with some tough tracks going into Daytona at the end of next month.
Yep.
And the thing, though, with Atlanta, looking at this track, they've changed into the super speedway on 1.5 miles. It kind of races the same way, so that means you kind of got to avoid the big one. However, we haven't really had the big one in Atlanta yet. So it's really going to depend on what you do in the qualifying session on Saturday. You've got to be up front, because these cars don't go back to the front like the Gen 6 car does. We've learned that already in 2 years. So if you get stuck in the back, you're going to need some creative pit strategy or a lot of luck to be in the position to win, and then try to avoid the inevitable melee that happens in the last lap.
Well, I was going to say, there's going to be a big one at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And you either need to be ahead of it or so far behind it you don't get caught up in it. And yeah, personally, I'd rather qualify pole and be up there.
Yeah. And right now, if you are a Bubba Wallace, if you're Ty Gibbs, Daniel Suarez, Michael McDowell, you are not helping each other at all on Sunday night. Especially if you are Bubba or Ty, because a win locks you in, and a win that's not by you is going to put you on the bubble, unless it's somebody that's already won or not eligible. So it's going to be a challenge, and it's going to be fun to watch. I will say that.
Yep, I'm looking forward to it for sure.
So we do have nearest the win. We're going to hit on that, and then we are going to close with the conversation we really need to have about how we restart these races. But we have the British Grand Prix in Atlanta for NASCAR. Chris, who'd everybody pick?
Well, I only have at the moment yours, mine, and Matt White's. So, Michael, I sent you the Google Forms link. I texted it in our group.
Can you send it to the Zoom chat real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Figure out how to. Yeah. So, sorry, I'm obviously trying to get that over to him.
No, it's okay.
There you go. It's in the Zoom chat, Michael.
All right.
Okay. So so Matt White for NASCAR at Atlanta, he is going to take Justin Haley, and for Formula One at Silverstone, he is taking Yuki, which is a bold strategy, if you ask me. But you know what? He picked SVG last week, so maybe sometimes a bold strategy works. Daryl for NASCAR at Atlanta is taking Denny Hamlin. I took Denny Hamlin last week. Did not go so good for me. Started on the pole though, so I was so excited. And then I saw him in the wall and I started screaming. I was like, God dang it. And then so for Formula One at Silverstone, Daryl, you are taking Esty Bestie.
Yes.
Nice. And then okay, here we go. Michael's picks are in. So for Michael at NASCAR at Atlanta, he's taking the hometown favorite Chase Elliott. That's a good pick there. And then for Silverstone, you're also taking Yuki.
Yep.
And then for myself, NASCAR Atlanta, I'm taking Alex Bowman. We got a checkers or wreckers, in my opinion, this week. And then I'm going to take Lando at Silverstone. So that's our picks for this week.
Yep. Good luck to everyone's picks this week, and hopefully we have some good racing. Usually this is when we do the spiel about where you can find us and everything, but to wrap up today with the situation that we had, well, actually, before that, I do want to get over the H1 Unlimited points after the Governor's Cup. Jamie Nielsen is currently leading those points in the Legacy Yacht Club after a wild Indiana Governor's Cup. Unfortunately, we did not finish the playoff or the final again after a flip and then torrential weather came in that affected the race. So J. Michael Kelly ends up winning the Governor's Cup on points. Currently, it's 1 point between Legacy Yacht Club and Beacon Electric, 23-15 to 23-14 as they head into Tri-Cities at the end of the month for the Columbia Cup. But we are going to dedicate the end of this show just to discussing the situation regarding Delano Van 't Hoff at Spa. He was racing in the Formula Regional European Championship race at Spa. There was heavy rain. They red flagged the race. They decided to restart it. On the first lap, there was a spin just past Radillon, going down the Camel Straight. Van Hoff ended up side perpendicular on track, was struck by another car, and was killed in a vicious accident. And it was ironic because that Thursday we talked about it. And Chris, you said something in our chat that was very poignant. Complacency or comfort breeds complacency. And we saw that with a race that should not have been restarted, and it cost a driver his life. You guys there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, I was opening up to one of you guys.
Yeah, I was just trying to think what to say, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I was letting Chris go because he's a much better man with words than I am.
I think we discussed it at length last week, Daryl. And that's the first thing that I think I texted you guys when I saw the thing. And, I obviously don't like swearing, but the first thing I read was I wrote you guys, I said, safety fucking matters.
It really does.
We how many times, and I get that nowadays it doesn't happen very often, and really in we just talked about the drivers the last time we lost drivers in these series, and sure, we only did the top two series, three, I guess. We did Indy, Formula One, and NASCAR, but you look in open wheel as a whole just tend to have nasty wrecks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the job of the governing body, the sanctioning body, to protect the lives of its competitors. I feel comfortable saying that the kids that were getting in those cars were either feeling uncomfortable about it or they still feel invincible, which is something that we all inevitably lose at some point in our life, is that invincibility. And it's the kid was 18 years old. He's still a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you had grown adults putting those kids' lives in danger for no reason, no good reason, other than TV ratings. And shame on whoever made the decision to start that race. And just, we have to be better at Spa. That track has taken life after life after life after life. And maybe it's time that we consider reconfiguring it or doing something to make that track safer, because it's a death trap as far as I'm concerned, especially with the amount of precipitation that they get.
Well, I can't blame the circuit this time because they should never restarted the race. I mean, you could not see the car in front of you. There was no reason for that race to be restarted, and it was worse than the F1 race that never started. So if it wasn't safe for F1, how the hell was it safe for these kids? And they're mostly kids at this level. They might be 18, 19, but they're kids. And if they're going to want to race, somebody has to be the adult and say, no, it's too dangerous. No one was the adult, and now a kid is dead. We'll never know what his career was going to shape up to, because someone in race control needed to make the right decision, and for whatever reason refused to do it. And now parents had to bury their son this week. You've got an entire series mourning a driver. His team, MP Motorsport, they're not going to run this week. They're not going to run in the Mugello round of the Regional European Championship after losing their driver. And it should have never happened. It should have never been in this situation to begin with. And yet again, an FIA series fails to learn the lessons that we've already learned in blood from years ago, and we are doomed to repeat them. At this point, there's a top-to-bottom restructuring that needs to happen again in the FIA leadership. And I know Ben Sulayem just got there. His ass needs to be looking for a new job, too, if this continues. Because this cannot keep going. We cannot keep going every year and seeing a driver get seriously injured or worse because of a stupid FIA decision that should have never been made in the first place. And you know what? Sometimes those stupid decisions don't cost lives. Sometimes they cost championships. And it just goes to a point that top to bottom, no matter what the decision is, the FIA, they're going to make the wrong one. And this time it bit in the worst way. And I know none of them are listening. I'm not in the tax bracket to where they'll ever listen to me. But if any of them stumble upon this podcast, for the love of God, take your head out of your rear and read the room before somebody else gets killed. And that's all I got to say about it. Michael, if you've had anything to add, if not, we will close out.
All I have to say is really think about what you're doing when you're having a race, having an event, having any type of function anywhere, not just racing, but any type of function, a party, anything. Think about safety, think about the other people that are around you, and make sure everybody's getting out of there all right and fine and dandy. Because, like Chris said last time we talked about this, if anything bad can happen, it will. And we saw that this week. Just think about other people, think about their families and what they're gonna do, what they're gonna do if something bad happens, and make the call. Yeah, you might get criticized. Yeah, you might have a bunch of people yelling at you on Twitter. At the end of the day, somebody's life is going to be saved, and they'll have you to thank for it. So that's all I got to say about that.
So that will close us out for this episode, and we're gonna go out. We're not gonna do the normal song and dance when we head out. We're gonna end it on a moment of silence and just give your prayers to the Van Hoff family and pray that the FIA gets their heads out their asses. We'll see you guys next week.